When a business experiences rapid growth, it eventually hits a physical ceiling. In the short run, your factory size is fixed. You can hire more staff or run machines longer, but eventually the cost of producing each additional unit climbs because you are overcrowding a finite space. This is the inherent restriction of fixed capital. To bypass this, we look at the long run. In economic theory, the long run isn't a set date on a calendar. It is a planning state where every cost is variable. You have the freedom to change everything. You can break leases, move to larger regions, or build massive new facilities. Finding the long run's most efficient point requires specific calculus. Taking the derivative of the average cost function and setting it to 0 reveals the curve's absolute minimum. At this coordinate, the marginal cost equals the average cost. The long run removes the physical barriers of the present, allowing a firm to move toward this mathematical point of maximum efficiency by scaling its infrastructure to match its ambitions. Imagine a firm deciding between 3 specific factory sizes, K1, K2, and K3. Each represents a different level of investment and physical capacity, and each has its own unique cost structure based on how much the firm intends to produce. This graph illustrates the choice. The 3 U-shaped curves, SAC1, 2, and 3, show the short-run average costs for those 3 factory sizes. If the firm's target is quantity Q bar, it won't choose the smallest or largest plant. It will select the medium factory, represented by SAC2, because point C offers the lowest possible cost per unit for that specific output. A rational firm ignores the sections of these curves that sit higher up, as those represent unnecessary expenses. By connecting only the lowest cost segments of each factory option, we create a new, scalloped boundary called the long-run average cost curve, or LAC. This boundary represents the most efficient path forward, built from the lowest cost fragments of the firm's available short-run realities. In reality, a firm often has more than 3 choices. If we assume there are an infinite number of potential factory sizes, those individual short-run curves become so numerous that they form a smooth, continuous line. This smooth red line is the envelope curve. It acts as a boundary that contains all possible short-run configurations, showing the minimum cost of producing any level of output when the firm is free to choose any plant size. There is a specific detail to notice here. The envelope curve does not touch the absolute bottom of every short-run curve. On the left, it makes contact while the short-run costs are still falling. On the right, it touches them while they are already rising. This occurs because of the forces of scale. On the left, economies of scale drive costs down as the firm grows and specializes. On the right, diseconomies of scale take over, where the sheer size of the organization leads to communication breakdowns and rising administrative costs. Optimization is not just about maximizing the output of your current factory. It is about identifying the specific scale that balances these forces to achieve the lowest possible unit cost across the entire industry landscape. Within this U-shaped envelope, there is one precise location known as the optimum scale of plant. This is the point where the firm has reached its most efficient possible size. At this specific coordinate, labeled C, the long-run average cost is at its absolute minimum. Here, the 4 major cost curves, short-run and long-run, marginal and average, all intersect at a single point. This intersection represents a state of total economic equilibrium, where the firm's immediate production costs and its long-term structural costs are perfectly aligned. These abstract curves have concrete consequences in the corporate world, as seen in the 1970s commercial baking industry. At the time, massive bakeries were locked in a fierce price war to capture regional markets. ITT Continental Baking, the producer of Wonder Bread, was sued by a competitor for predatory pricing. The accusation was that Continental was selling bread at 17.2 cents a loaf, well below their average cost of 20.6 cents, to drive rivals out of business. When the case reached the courtroom, the judge issued a ruling that relied heavily on economic cost theory. Despite the price being below average cost, the court found the company was not guilty of predatory behavior. The judge's reasoning was tied to the envelope curve. Because Continental was operating in a phase of significant economies of scale, their marginal cost to produce one more loaf was actually lower than the 17.2-cent sale price. Their high volume allowed them to maintain a profit margin on each new loaf, even if their total average costs appeared high. This case demonstrates that cost curves are more than academic exercises. Understanding your position on the long-run average cost curve provides the economic justification for pricing strategies that might otherwise be mistaken for market manipulation, directly impacting a firm's legal standing and competitive survival. If you were leading a company facing a surge in demand, would you stay in the short run and pay for the inefficiency of overtime, or would you commit the capital to move to a new point on the long-run curve? Share your strategy in the comments.